Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Empowered Living Hangout. This is, as you guys know, traditionally our marketing hangout where we are talking about Jedi marketing secrets, how you can expand your business, how you can take simple principles and knowledge and be able to apply it so that you can live a life of freedom and do so by doing the same things you do every single day. I want to welcome to the webinar with me, or to the hangout with me today, Laura Wells, social networker. She is going to be actually our online diva. She's going to be monitoring our news feed that's going on right now at empoweredliving.biz. I'm sorry, facebook.com/groups/Empowered Living Network. Welcome, Laura.
I was on mute. Hi, everybody.
So, Laura, folks are going to be able to be throwing questions your way, and you're going to throw them back to me. I'm going to have my chat open here, and so just feel free to send them my direction, and that way Juan and I can stop and certainly answer questions. Now, today is going to be a very special day that we are starting on our series called Smart Money, and this is going to be a really exciting next number of weeks because we're going to be talking to you about the topic of your finances. You know, a lot of people say, Stacy, why are you so passionate about these types of trainings and bringing information to people? To be honest with you guys, I've been doing direct sales for 25 years, and I've watched folks spin their wheels in effort to make money, and they find themselves worn out. They find themselves losing family time because they do a business. My husband and I, we decided a long time ago that we won't do Solavei. It's not something that we're going to turn on and turn off for the people and be one thing on stage and another thing off stage. We decided that we were going to be Solavei. What is Solavei? Solavei means sun in your veins, light, hope. You know, when we happen to tell someone about Solavei mobile service, it's just a part of what we already do. We want to see people financially free. We want to see people living great lives of balance with their family. That doesn't come because you have a business. That certainly doesn't come because you own your own business. It comes because you've understood a psychology of success that requires knowledge mixed with wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is applied knowledge. So many of you guys know that we're traveling all over the United States, and we're sharing a lot of these topics about finances, about relationships, testimonies of cancer survivors, and it's all blended around this wonderful commonality that we have, that we're all in Solavei, social commerce network that's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger with hundreds of thousands of people already joined with us. So I think the big picture is we're sharing knowledge, but knowledge only helps you when you apply it, and that's when it becomes wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge applied. So hopefully today, again, we are going to take a time of training, give you knowledge, so that free knowledge, actually. Why do we do this? You know, it's funny. My kids this morning, my son is so a part of this. He's been, since he was about 5 years old, studying financial matters. This morning I was talking with Ron Williams about how my son has studied Robert Kiyosaki, and we've got the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow game that we've taught our kids, and teaching them how to have their inflow or their income bigger than their expenditures, so that their passive income can actually pay for their monthly expenditures so that they have excess. We've talked about margin with our children. So, you know, even when I do this webinar or this hangout with you, it's a part of our family. It's a part of the education of our family, and I'm just kind of making the group bigger. Just recently we came back from our social commerce tour, and my son was with me, and that's one of his classes in homeschooling, entrepreneurialism and learning how to apply business matters today. I didn't always do it that way. I used to, you know, in my 30s, I had a business, I had my family, and I had my faith. And then I realized, you know, God doesn't call us to do our faith. He doesn't call us to do family, and He doesn't call us to do business. He calls us to be a reflection of Him 24/7. And so hopefully today, what I'm going to share with you, along with Laura and Juan, hopefully today this will be training that you will be able to apply to your life, not just to your business. And that's why we call it the Empowered Living Network. We want to see you live an empowered life. And as you apply Solavei to that, some of you may be involved in other businesses. You may have your own boutique store. I know some of you have car dealerships, store dealerships, and some of you are pastors and ministers. Hopefully the training that we give you each week in these hangouts and webinars, and certainly our Social Commerce University, hopefully it's information that you not only apply to your business, but you apply to your life. So welcome to the Empowered Living Network. And I want to invite Juan Williams now. Juan, welcome to the webinar, to the hangout this morning. We're so glad that you're here. Let's see if we can hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. I'm glad to hear you. Still loving the Attitude and Dreams pictures behind you.
Yes.
Well, we are going to jump right in. And again, I just want to remind you all that Laura Wells is going to be monitoring our feed at facebook.com/groups/Empowered Living Network. You can see it right there on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to turn off my little ringer there. Laura, I have access on my other text phone, so that if you have questions coming in, feel free to send them my way. So that's facebook.com/groups/Empowered Living Network. Today's topic is smart money. Now, we've been dabbling in this, playing around in it the last few weeks with Juan about tax benefits and savings, and we made the commitment that September we were going to, both of us, invest time in you, and as well as Laura. I mean, Laura's our steady Eddie, constantly there. Laura, I can't even begin to tell you. I know yesterday when you sent me in that you've already gotten your trio for the week, and here we are only on Wednesday. Pretty big. You're constantly doing the deal. You're such a leader worth following, and we so appreciate that you are willing to monitor for us today while Juan and I talk about this incredible topic about money. Now, we are going to be spending the next number of weeks talking about this topic and going through a transcript of a book that I wrote called Smart Money. Now, what we're going to do each week is we're going to be sending you free tools. This week, I'm going to send you actually the introduction and chapter 1. We're going to be sending it out through our empoweredliving.biz newsletter list. So if you want to get access to the free tools we're going to be sending out, make sure you go to empoweredliving.biz. Just opt in there. That's a safe, clean list. We don't use it for advertising other things. You can just rest assured this is going to be about helping you live an empowered life and build a Solavei business. So Smart Money, we're not selling this book. We're giving you this book. We're going to be giving you chapters out of it. We're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces. Next weekend, Laura and Juan are going to be talking about tax benefits and how important it is for you to understand how taxes play a role in overall money matters. So what we're going to do today is we are going to jump into this. Make it, save it, grow it. And I just want to do a quick disclaimer. You guys know I always do this to let you know that I'm not a CPA. I don't want to be your CPA. I encourage you to get help from a CPA on your personal financial situation. What we're going to do today, though, is we're going to talk about some things that I personally have gone through, Juan as well, Laura as well, and that we have found that works. Now, I happen to be blessed to have been surrounded by some of the top financial advisors, Fortune 500 advisors in the world, really, and have gotten some pretty amazing information over the course of the last 10 to 13 years that many years ago, back in 2006, I had the opportunity to sit down and write this book along with a number of other books on finances, faith, family, fitness. And what I found in each situation, it was always the same. It came back to the psychology of debt, the psychology of money, the psychology of food, the psychology of marriage. What are your core belief systems as it relates? So today, we're going to dive into this, so hopefully we can show you in your Solavei business or whatever you happen to be doing how you can begin to apply some principles that will help you make more out of what you've got. So we encourage you to make sure that you certainly don't use this as your tax advice, but use this as wisdom that we're sharing with you that has truly affected our lives. Now, Juan is a financial solution expert, and we love the fact that he is with us. And one of the reasons I spoke with him this morning and said, I love having you a part of this whole journey because he's going to balance things out with what you can do to apply specific systems and tools to be able to become effectively debt-free, living in financial freedom, and on your way to wealth. Now, Juan, you this morning spoke to me. I called you and you said, Stacy, I've been up all night. Tell me, what was happening? Why were you up all night?
Okay. Thank you for having me on the call. And I look forward to being here every week and helping our listeners get educated and develop the mindset that I think will help them get over that death and job and just a poor mentality. I think that's what a lot of people have. When I was reading your book last night, I realized that we're not just dealing with someone who all of a sudden we see her on these calls that just got there because of some miracle that just happened overnight. And the way you describe yourself as a woman, growing up a certain way, just doing things because you just thought those were the things to do, whether it be shopping or spending money and not saving. And I think if I was just reading and I said, you know what, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm just going to read it because I knew we were going to get on the call. And I was fascinated because your information there touches the lives of everybody. Now, you said something, and I don't know when was the last time you went over the whole book, but you said something that I thought was so important. You're going to speak in language that the average person can understand. When people go to tax, or not taxes, but to financial professionals, dealing with stocks and bonds, most financial experts are trying to get you to give them money so that they can have a commission off of your money and so that you can turn around and make money. Well, we know that unless you have a lot of money, it's very, very hard to make money in stocks or real estate or anything like that. So I like the fact that you give them a mentality that says, hey, you have to change your mentality. You have to look at more than where you are. You have to look at where you came from. Some people have been, for years and years and years, grow up in homes where they never talk about money. There was never any discussion except for it doesn't grow on trees, or, it's hard. You got to go out and get a job and just work until, and then kids look at their parents and they say, well, Mom, Dad, you work all your life and we haven't seen anything. So that's why they go out and do drugs and do other things so that they can get ahead. And I think we, on this call, have to understand that people desire 2 financial strategies in their life. Just 2. Number 1 is people need to make enough money while they're able to work so that they can enjoy their lifestyle. And 2, they have to build assets so that when they can't work anymore, they will have income producing assets that will help them live the lifestyle they want. But there are just the obstacles of working a job, trying to save a little from each paycheck. I was talking to a gentleman this morning, and I said, the thing is, we want to get people to at least not spend all the money. And I know you spoke about putting away 10% and 15% in savings and so, but let's face it, okay? The average person is living way above their means, not because of choice, just because of how, everything is marketed to them. So people are spending more than they're making every single month. So they don't have nothing to save. So they say, okay, well, I can save $25 a week. Well, if you save $25 a week for the next 5 years, you'll have $1,500. And people say, well, that's not enough money. And so they never even start somewhere. They never even say, well, okay, let me start somewhere. And we know that you should be paying yourself first. We know that all those things. So what they do, they set up a budget. And on the budget is the cell phone, the gas, the electric, the water, the mortgage, everything. And what we say is, where do you come in as far as saving, as far as doing that? So I think over the next few weeks, we need to be able to show people that, look, first you got to get the mindset, And I know we spoke about someone who might think that they have cancer. Or they go to someone and the person tells them, well, if you don't stop eating the way that you eat, and you'll get diabetes. Well, they don't want to hear that they're going to get diabetes. They don't want to hear that I'm going to get cancer. Don't tell me I'm going to get it. And so what we do is we wait until we have the problem of finances, of health, and then we start to look for a quick fix for it. And that doesn't happen. So I think what we can do is show them the smart cash flow strategies of reducing taxes, getting a business so that they can make an extra income, and then start terminating that debt. Because the debt is what have people enslaved. And so I'm looking forward to us just going through this and giving them systems and things that they can start doing, becoming interactive. You know, just simply writing down your stuff is not enough. There's things that you have to do to get more money. Because, you know, you can have a lot of debt, but if you have no money, so we will show them how they can get the money that they're already spending from the IRS and in their business.
We're going to show all of that over the course of the next number of weeks. We're actually not going to talk to you about it. We're going to show you how to do it. And so, Juan, I love the way you and I this morning we were talking about how similar. We were talking about a doctor that actually reads your eyes, and they can look into your eyes and see what kind of disease you're going to have. And you know, it's the same thing. Of a lot of people avoid the dentist. They avoid the doctor because they don't want to have to get a cavity. They don't want to have to fix any issues. So they live lives of quiet desperation and ignorance. Unfortunately, what that does is it causes you to be apathetic and not at your optimal best. So obviously, you guys hear me on my sign out. I'm believing the best for you. What does that mean? If you've got me in a personal moment, I'm going to say I'm believing God's best for you, because that's even better than my best. I may think something is good, but man, I want the optimal best for my children. I want the optimal best for my team. I want the optimal best for Solavei. I want the optimal best for my life. And in order to get that, you've got to be willing to make some very clear clarifications. That is why chapter 1 of this book is called A Great Awakening. Most of us, we do this, la 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 la. We don't want to know, right? But when we allow ourselves to be awakened, we live in a nation that is pretty much been what I would say brainwashed by media, advertising, entertainment. We love magazines. We think people really look like that. Let me just tell you, we don't. They don't. I look at, even when I'm traveling and doing these tours, I always tell people, you got to love a Photoshop picture, right? Because we always make ourselves look better than we really are. And I think that's part of the psychology of America. Well, we need to wake up. And we need to stop reading our own press or the hypothetical life we think we're living, and we need to face the facts so that we can begin to access that place called B-E-S-T, best. What is that best place? It's a place where peace that passes all understanding resides. It's a place where your family lives in harmony and unity. It's a place where you're the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, that you owe no man anything but to love him. It's a place where you really are like a magnetic attraction to good things coming your way, and that people want to follow you, not because of what you say or what kind of videos you put out there, but because of the life that you've proven you live. So a place called best really is you being a light, which we call Solavei, sun in the veins. It's your light, your true light, who you really are, being able to be broadcast to the world. Well, I love this quote that you see on the screen right now. It says, it's from Zig Ziglar, a dear friend of mine who passed away recently, and he always said, I love the things that money can buy. I mean, I like the things that money can buy, but I love the things that money can't buy. He would say, money can buy you a house, but it will never buy you a home. Money can buy you books, but it will not buy you wisdom. Money can buy you a bed, but it cannot buy you a good night's sleep. And when you think about all of those things, money can buy you a lot of things. But what money can't buy you are the inner values that only come with wisdom. And so today we're going to take a little journey down a path of wisdom to help hopefully all of you that are watching, and even it's always a great reminder, no one, I haven't read my book since 2008, and which is a great thing that you guys are a part of me rereading it. We're going to be updating it. Some of the information, because of the way the stocks have shifted, and of course we had a great economic turnaround and downturn. We're going to change some of those back-end chapters, chapters 8, 9, and 10. We're going to change those up, bring them up to date. But certainly here in the first number of chapters, we're going to go through and actually share those chapters with you because I really believe that they're going to help you. Here's where it all started. I was, as many of you know, I had a nonprofit organization for women that was in 22 countries, very much like Laura Wells and the HeartLink Network. It was called Empowering Women. And one of the things we found was that women struggled financially. But what was even more frustrating for women is that when they went to find help, it was always being taught by people who were just speaking over our heads. We didn't understand the terminology. So because I had had a personal battle with debt in my life and in my husband's life, and I'm going to share that with you, and I'm very transparent in this book, right, Juan? And
Yes, you are.
Open up about what my personal issues were and how I was able to break through them. So we're going to have a very personal journey. I was blessed to have a mom and dad that were absolutely the most positive, encouraging human beings on earth. But my father and my mother were also missionaries and ministers. So they tended to give and give and give. And ultimately, there were times in our lives where we didn't have a lot. But you'll see in the first chapter of this book that even when I got money, because I was always afraid of losing money, I then later in my life, I hoarded money and spent it as fast as I could, which put me in debt. You're going to read about that in chapter 1. But here is where it started, is I started getting all these emails from women saying, Stacy, here's an example. We have so much debt, I can't sleep at night. Every time the phone rings, I get a sinking feeling in my stomach, knowing it's just another creditor calling. Is there any way for us to escape this nightmare? And those kind of statements came in over and over. We're struggling in our marriage, or I'm a single mom with 4 kids. Now, I realize that Solavei is, I believe it's over 64% men. And I'm going to show you something in just a minute on why this is so important that I still maintain a conversation with the men and their spouses and their girlfriends, or those of you women that are single moms, or maybe you're young women that are just growing up. I'm going to maintain that because I think we're going to keep it simple enough that all of us can get it. Here's the short-term goal. Let me just pop past. Oh, my goodness. The short-term goal is to become financially, let me just read here, that slide is all messed up. Become financially free with all debts paid for within 7 years. Okay, that's our first goal. I want to see you create a 7-year plan. There's actually biblical reference to this, that it's called the 7 years of Jubilee, or freedom. So every 7 years, you need to create a strategic plan and do a check and say, how am I doing in my health, in my finances, in my family, and look at how can I reduce the baggage so that I can come to a life of freedom. Now, 7 years, I'm going to show you how to do that. You may not take 7 years to get out of debt, but even if it took you 7 years to get out of the current state you're in, think about it. If you took 7 years, in 7 years from now, you will look back and you will either say, man, I wish I had. I wish I had started 7 years ago when I saw that hangout. Because you may end up being right where you are right now in 7 years. Or you will take the wisdom that we're giving you here and get advice from your CPA and others, and you will make the adjustments you need to make, and you'll look back on these 7 years and say, I'm glad I did. So you will either be an I wish I had or an I'm glad I did. And I really pray and believe that we're going to have a lot of I'm glad I did. So what is our long-term goal? Well, our long-term goal of why we're going to share all this information this month is financial freedom. It's independence and eventually wealth. There is a mentality of wealth that is very different than a mentality of income. Income means I work a job or I work a business to pay me. Wealth means I have enough money that my money works on my behalf and pays for my future. Eventually, we want to get to where your money is your employee. Your money is going out there working on your behalf. So here is a statement that I love about the United States of America. We call ourselves the home of the free. But are we? Are we really free? I mean, I recognize that if we compare ourselves to other countries, there's so many freedoms that we get to experience. And yet, despite the freedoms of choice that we've been given here in America, we are choosing to live in bondage. We're choosing to live in a state of slavery. So, check out this statistic. Research has shown us that the average American spends 10 to 20% more than they make each month. What that means is that no matter what their income is, they're still living behind the proverbial 8 ball, right? So think about it this way. If you're making $20,000 a month, you're probably spending a little bit more than that, which is causing you to go in more and more debt. However, if you're making $2 million a year, it doesn't really matter. Check the stats. The average American, no matter how much money they're making, they're overspending by 10 to 20%. So that's why we see football stars that are making millions and millions of dollars a year, broke, destitute, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their money. We see superstars that next thing you know, they're claiming bankruptcy. Why is that? Because the home of the free has lacked wisdom when it comes to smart money, when it comes to financial matters. And you're going to read, even in this first chapter, I didn't grow up with a mom and dad that sat down and said, here, let me show you how to balance a budget. Let me show you how to really know what to do with your money. It just didn't happen in my growing up. I certainly know that the government didn't teach it to me, and probably not you either if you're watching this. But here's what we can do. Knowing that we have a chance to break that kind of, what I would say, curse of lack of knowledge, we can start training our children better today going free. So if we want to have home of the free, then parents, we've got to start making decisions to live in freedom. Now, I tell the story of my personal financial 180, and you're going to read the whole story. But my first personal discovery was this, and here's the way it happened. As I came home, I was a recording artist. I was singing and speaking all over the United States, traveling with Zig Ziglar. I was on the tour of the Peter Lowe Get Motivated seminars, which the success seminars that were traveling all over. I was making really good money. My husband had an incredible job. We were 27 years old and doing, you know, what you seem to do at 27. I mean, a great life. We got to 30, 32, and really, honestly, thinking that we were living a pretty good life. You know, spending time with our family, building business, really, you know, trying to live the perfectly balanced life. And I came home one day, and I saw my husband just hands all over his face, and he was kind of pulling his hair back like this, sitting at our kitchen table. And I was like, baby, what's going on? Are you okay? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know which bill not to pay. And I looked at him, I go, what are you talking about? And he said, honey, we don't make enough money to live like this. Now, we were living in a 5,500 square foot home in Dallas, Texas. We had everything money can buy. I was driving a brand new Navigator. He was driving a brand new F-250, and, you know, great clothes. And we lived the life externally that everyone would want to live. 2 kids, great house, went to church on Sundays. Everything seemed perfect. We were in love, didn't argue a lot. But all of a sudden I came home and I saw this stress on my husband, and I was like, well, something's got to be wrong, because we make way too much money for us not to be able to pay our bills. And he looked at me and he said, I can't figure it out, but we are going deeper and deeper in debt. And I was like, well, you must be doing something wrong. So, of course, being Princess Warrior, hello, thank you, Laura, for my glass, Princess Warrior glass. I looked at him and I said, well, you must be doing something wrong. I'm going to call one of my financial advisor friends. So I called a guy who was a financial advisor for Fortune 500 companies. And he ended up coming to Dallas and sitting with us and talking with us. And he went through this investigation. And I just thought, you know, this is going to be really good for my husband, because, you know, he wasn't raised with a dad, and he probably didn't get taught how to balance the books and stuff. And so the financial advisor sat down. He said, Larry, Stacy, have a seat. And we're sitting there together. And he said, well, I have definitely uncovered what your challenge is. And you're bleeding. You know, you're definitely making less money than you're spending. And you guys have got a cycle of debt. He says, I've watched your numbers. You can get out of debt, but then you go right back into it. And I said, well, what's the problem? And he looked at me and he said, well, Stacy, it's you. And I said, me? What do you mean it's me? And he said, it's you. He said, let me just go down this list. And he started going down the list of my Starbucks and my $57 nails and manis and petties and my my hair, how much it was costing to keep my hair actual blonde, and all of the things that I mean, guys, I was crazy spending. I was spending like I was multi-millionaire. And yet here we are in our early 30s, and we were living a lot. We were fakers. That's what we were. That's what I call people who are living a life they can't afford. They're fakers. And we were fakers. And that day, it was like someone just smacked me upside the head and woke me up. Because here's a quote out of the book. Making money doesn't make you rich. It's not how much money you make that matters most, but what you do with that money that makes the difference. Juan, I know you've read that part, and I know you've seen this time and time again, where you see people, it's not that they're not making good money. It's that they just don't know what to do with the money they're making. And thank God that day I had an awakening, because I'm getting ready to tell them what shifted and how they can make that shift as well. Juan, what do you see when you see people that have a money versus value issue?
Well, you know, I'm glad you asked that question, because in the tax business, you see people making $20,000 a year, and you see those who are making $800,000 or $400,000, and those who are making $400,000 are just as stressed and broke as those making $20,000, because the guy making $20,000, if he loses his job, he can go get a job at McDonald's. But the guy who loses his job making $250,000, you know, I had a client one time, and that's what he was making. He had to give up everything he had and wait 2 years before he can make another job making $250,000, because if he takes a step down to where he's making only $70,000, then it doesn't look good on his resume, and he probably could never get back up to the $250,000. So there's a lot of stress. What I enjoyed a lot about your book and what you're talking about is when you identified the 10 reasons to be debt-free. I mean, it is huge. And I think each person on the call has to identify, why is it that debt is such a huge deterrent in getting ahead financially? And it's because, you know, and I say this again, if you really want to get out of debt, you have to identify that, first of all, that, look, I'm in debt, and it's causing my life financial hell. And I like to, you know, I always put a little saying, G is get, O is out, of debt, God. Okay? Because God says that the lender or the borrower is slave to the lender. And none of us want to be in slavery. And when I went through last night and looked at in the book where you talked about the 10 reasons to be debt-free, your first one was debt is slavery. And then you gave an explanation of how this really, you know, for most Americans, 95% of them are in debt up to their eyeballs. And then what this does is causes stress. And what stress causes is illnesses. And so one thing is just, it's like a domino effect, but it all starts with debt. And then you ended with, and I can see it right here.
I'm going to actually show them all 10 of them here in just a minute. I'm going to show them all.
It was magnificent, because I'm seeing people coming in here, and I'm telling them things like, well, I see that you overpaid the IRS by $5,000. And they say, well, what do you mean? I says, well, you don't have anything to claim on your taxes. You spend all this money eating out, driving, but you don't have a business. And the IRS makes it clear that if you are, there are 2 tax laws in this country. Okay. People say, well, how many? 2. One is for business owners, and one is for employees. The business owner gets the majority of expenses written off. Employees get a total of about 4, if they can even claim them. And so what happens is the employees are paying the brunt of all of the money to the IRS. And business owners are now saying, okay, you mean to tell me if I change this one thing on my form, the IRS will then allow me to take home an extra $200, $500, $1,000 every month legally? I says, yes. But the wisdom tells you that that makes sense. But your mind is saying, well, you know what, I've been doing my taxes, and H&R Block never told me that. And so I'm going to what H&R Block said, rather than saying, let me look and see what the IRS says. Let me look at that. You remember they used to mail out those 1040 booklets to people? before the tax season, nobody ever read the booklet. But in the booklet, it tells you, did you know you can write this off? Did you know you can do this? Did you know you can do that? But people say, well, I don't have a business and I'm not making any money, so I'm not going to. So guess what? They use all the money up during the year that they could be using to pay off their debt and then be debt free. Because when you're debt free, all you need is a few dollars to survive. You see? But when you're in debt, it causes all kinds of pain and suffering. And so I like to tell people this. What is your plan? What is your game plan? Because everybody wants to be wealthy, right? You know, they tell you they want to be wealthy. They tell you that, oh, okay, then you say, well, let's go ahead and show you what you got to do. And people say, well, you know what? You mean to tell me I got to fill out a new form? What do I got to do? I got to go to personnel? Oh, man, I don't like going to personnel. You know, okay, well, I'll get back to you. And then next year when they come in, I say, well, you owe the IRS again. And so people literally spend all their money paying taxes when they could be using that money to pay off debt and then get themselves a house and pay off the house so they can have some real estate and so that they can have something that they own. I heard a statistics one time that says only 2% of the homes in America are owned by the people living in them. People have huge debt on these houses and these cars and education and all the things, and they don't know what to do. So I am just so ecstatic that we can say, okay, well, here's what you got to do. Here's a plan. For those of you who want it, get on this call. We're going to give it to you, and you'll be able to do something. And like Stacey said, the 7-year plan. Hey, if it takes you 7 years, wonderful, but I'm sure once you start getting out of debt, you're going to see how you can do it in
Yeah, and you know why we say 7 years? Obviously, there's a big spiritual number behind 7. But you know what? It took my husband and I 3 years. It took us 3 solid years to become debt-free. Cars paid for. I mean, you have to know that you live in a state of absolute freedom. Now, we're going to show you that. And one, you know, this is a funny slide because you've heard that song, it's a man's world. Well, is it really a man's world? And the reason why I say that is when I did a little research in writing this book, I realized that when it comes to financial matters, men really don't control America. Women control America. Watch this stat. Did you know that women are responsible for over 80% of all the consumer purchases made in America today? Crazy, right? That even includes John Deere tractors. Well, I mean, it's amazing. Women are the choice makers when it comes to writing the checks. If we know that, then that means we've got to help women, your girlfriends, your daughters, and you make better decisions when it comes to expenditures, when it comes to what we're buying. Look at this. In 2001 alone, the purchasing power of American women exceeded the entire economy of Japan combined. Crazy. So here we are, the land of the free. We get to make freedom choices, but are we really making the best choices that are out there? So that brings us to why do we do what we do? And that's the psychology of debt we want to talk about today, and you're going to see in this chapter. Watch this. Money is an important thing. You know, I love the scripture that says that it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. It's not money itself, because money has the power to rule nations, but it also has the power to destroy marriages and homes. It can bring life to a child that's needing a heart transplant, but it can also bring so much stress, like Juan said, that it leads to heart failure. Money has 2 very distinct faces. One is the face of your friend that can help you in times of trouble, that can be the resource you need to go to in your 6-month emergency relief fund when your transmission goes out. Money is your friend. But the other face of money is your foe. And that is, it's there to deceive you into making foolish decisions that you otherwise wouldn't make. And we want to help you see how to make great decisions. Zig Ziglar said money isn't everything, but it is right up there with oxygen. And he was right. If you've ever had money and been without money, I can tell you I've been in both places, and I like having money better. But I've also learned how to be content that when money is thin, and I think I've shared with you guys before, that we went through in 2006, a struggle financially, and in that season it led to this book, it led to all the different changes that we made financially. But I also know that it was those times that we had to cut back. We had to change houses. We had to make some decisions, not try to fix ourselves in the lifestyle we were, but to go ahead and be willing to change our lifestyle. Guys, when we had this awakening, the financial, we were living in a huge home, and you may be thinking, oh, Stacy, don't tell me I've got to give up. Sometimes you've got to give up to go up. Sometimes you've got to sacrifice short-term in order to make long-term choices that lead to wisdom. So what we did is we moved out of this house. We ended up moving to another home, and I remember going and looking at homes. My husband would walk around, and my husband's actually a very, very humble guy, but he had become so accustomed to, 10-inch crown molding and hardwood floors and all these wonderful things that we loved in our home, wrought iron staircase. And the homes I was choosing, because when I get on something, when I have an awakening, I really am like a princess. I'm like a bulldog. I like pendulum shift, and I'm on it. And so I shifted, and I was like, no, we are getting out of debt. I'm not. If I'm the issue, then I'm going to show you I'm not the issue. I'm going to go find me a house. We're going to live underneath our means. We could afford a house this much. And I kept looking at houses here so that we would have margin in order to apply to debt. And so I immediately started making some pretty big decisions. You may be saying, well, Stacy, my home is my sanctuary. It was my sanctuary too, but it was also causing me a lack of peace. So the one thing that I thought was going to bring me peace was causing me stress. So I ended up looking at all these houses, and it was crazy because I would walk in and I would see, things that were different. And I know a lot of you have not had that situation where you're having to go from big to little. So I don't want you to look at me and go, oh, woe is you, how pitifully, sad for you, and think that I'm being calloused here. I'm not. But you got to understand, it's no different if you're used to living in a 1,400 square foot home that may be bare walls and linoleum. That's what we ended up going to so that we could truly have margin. But you know what? You may be sitting there saying the same thing about that person that has a house. You may be living in a trailer and having never had a house. And so it's where you're at. You've got to identify where you're at and be willing to make the choices that really do start here in order for you to have freedom here. So why do we talk about the psychology of debt? For me, I can't tell you how many times I would come home in that same setting. Honey, look, I saved $125 at Kohl's today, right? Hello? Kohl's doesn't save you money. Kohl's costs you money. So we see all these big things. You can save $125. Cashback Buck Awards. Spend this much money and we'll give you this much money back. It's never saving money. So even in America, we've had this psychology. Ladies, really? Let's just get real. Are those really new shoes? Yeah. And you're like, oh, no, I've had these things for months. Yes, they're new. You haven't worn them. You've been hiding them till the right moment. That's what we do. We've learned how to pad our existence as what I called fakers, right? Wanting to be free when we're playing freedom. So, for me personally, I began to realize that I was a bargain shopper. I grew up. I'm a garage sale shopper. I love hosting garage sales. I love going to garage sales. I don't care if you've owned it, repainted it. If it's a good piece of furniture, I'll repaint it again, and I will make it look beautiful. The problem with that, though, is even as a bargain shopper, if you don't need another piece of furniture, spending money at a bargain center does not make you money. It's still costing you money. So there was this huge psychology shift that I had to make that allowed me to, now, is shopping at a bargain center important if you have to have a piece of furniture? Yes. If you're in a state of debt, don't go be shopping at Neiman Marcus, right? Make sure that you're shopping where you need to shop. But what I'm saying is, I think you guys get me, is when we make this fake facade of I'm saving money when we really know we're spending money, it really is, all we're doing is hurting ourselves. Here's an example, and Juan, I know you and I talked about this morning because the story of, back in 2008, I was hosting Smart Money conferences and Smart Money, what we would call weekly workshops. People would come, and honestly, it was like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's no different than, I wrote a book called The Ultimate Body Makeover. and it was a 90-day coaching program to help people lose weight. Had people lose like 180 pounds in 18 months. Crazy stuff without a single pill, without even going to the gym. All here because of their psychology of food, the psychology of poor self-esteem, the psychology of the things that came out of their mouth because of what they believed here. You know, I'm fat, I can't lose the weight. All of those things play a part in your lifestyle. If you're constantly saying, you know, I'm so far in debt, I don't think I'll ever get out. Guess what? You'll never get out. Because all of those things go back to what your core belief system is. So I was doing these weekly workshops and had people coming, and I had this gal that was an excessive spender, absolutely stunningly gorgeous woman. I even tell this story in the Ultimate Body Makeover, but I'm going to apply it here, is she was addicted to spending. And she would come, and very much like an alcoholic, you know, I am an alcoholic or I am a spendaholic. The number one, first, most important thing is to admit you have a problem, right? So she came in, admitted she had a problem. She was going through the workbook and answering the questions. And when we looked at her answers, it was clear, wow, she's got a serious issue, right? So this same gal actually had 60 swimsuits. 60 swimsuits. And she kept buying swimsuits and buying swimsuits. And they were completely in debt, had financial struggles. Their marriage was completely on the rocks. And she showed up this one week. We had talked to her about the swimsuits, why it had happened. We found out that she, when she was young, she slipped out of her window and went to go hang out with her girlfriend, and on the way there got raped by a bunch of guys and ran home, came into her father. The father, she told the father she was beat up. The father said, well, that's what you get for getting out when you're not supposed to. Didn't have mercy for her. But that day, a psychology, a belief system of being worthless was pinned inside of her. So she moved into this lifestyle of working out, and I mean literally addictively working out. Gorgeous girl, rock solid body, 60 swimsuits, and addicted to spending. And when we got to the meat of it all, she showed up that day and she goes, you guys, I had a relapse. And we were like, what was your relapse? And she was like, I was driving down the street. I've been doing so good with my money. And she said, I saw this sale at Dillard's, and I went in and I bought an ottoman. And we all went, okay. And she goes, it was $1,600. And I said, did you need an ottoman? And she goes, no. She goes, I have so much furniture in my house, I don't even know where I'm going to put it. I'm going to have to put it in storage. And we realized, wow, we have got to help her go back beyond the money, beyond the workouts, beyond the 60 swimsuits, what happened. And when we figured out what happened in her childhood, her timeline, we're going to talk about that in other future times. Your life timeline, your history leaves clues for your destiny. And you can change your future at any time. So what happened in her history caused her psychology of money, psychology of working out, psychology of relationships, psychology of how she viewed herself, and all of those things. We had to go back to the beginning. We had to forgive some people. We had to let go of some hurts and pains. When she began to let go of the historical baggage, she was able to walk forward in true freedom. So the psychology of debt is so important, especially as it relates to that approval addiction. When she sat there that day, we watched her tell us her story, crying and weeping. You guys may think it sounds kind of funny, 60 swimsuits, but to her, it was major. Juan, you and I talked about the addiction to needing people's approval, stress, the psychology of being a bit twisted as it relates to your value and worth. It will show up in your life. And some people, it shows up in obesity. Some people, it shows up in debt. Some people, it shows up in broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship. But the commonality is that if you go back every single time, and after 20 years of being an executive life coach, I can tell you every time I'm able to go back, it's the way people view their history that creates the filter for how they see their destiny. And if they see their destiny as I will never, I can't, I'm just a, they have to break that psychology before they'll ever have freedom. Laura, I know you work with women all the time. You're the president of the HeartLink Network. You are helping women start businesses all over the world, multiple nations. How do you see, I mean, obviously we see it all the time, approval addiction. How do you see that playing out, even when it comes to small business owners and when they're getting started, the success rate of those who have a good, healthy psychology versus those who come from a broken psychology?
Yeah, I see it every day. I mean, and it goes twofold. I talk to women all the time who it's that paralysis by analysis kind of thing, and it's a lot of them will take their past. You know, I wasn't successful the last time I did something like this. Their great aunt Sally's sister's cousin's uncle's neighbor told them that it wasn't going to be successful 5 years ago, and so they project that onto what could be a breakthrough. And so a lot of times I see that. I see especially women. I honestly think that women deal with this maybe even sometimes more than men. I know I see it every single day, that especially with women, it's just we take to heart things that stick with us, moments, little moments. It could be something so small, but one thing that somebody says to you stays with you for 15 years, and it literally causes a shift until someone speaks loudly enough in your life that you trust that can give you a breakthrough where it's like that aha moment. Like you were saying, Stacey, I mean, all of a sudden it's like a pendulum shift. When the blinders come off and you finally realize, wait a second, I don't have to listen to that person. I'm not the person that they said I was, or my business tomorrow doesn't depend on what my business was yesterday. It's interesting. It's interesting how much, especially women, can take that to heart, and how much and on the opposite end of the spectrum, the confidence that someone gets when they get involved and they have a little taste of success, the confidence that builds, especially when there's recognition in play from anybody. But that confidence then can turn into something that carries them for years and years and years, even on other projects, when they know, I was really good at that, so I know I can do it again with this. And I see that every day, too.
That's great, because people might be going, okay, so why are you guys discussing this as it relates to Solavei? Why would you have this on a hangout? Because, guys, I cannot tell you how many people I've seen that are still trying to get their first enrollment, and their psychology is a psychology of lack, of failure, of brokenness, and it comes from their history. And honestly, you know, I said this to Laura earlier. Juan and Laura and I, we don't have to talk about this topic. Honestly, it's not the most popular. It's kind of like telling people to lay down the cheesecake when they love cheesecake. Don't tell somebody who's overweight to stop eating those potato chips at night because they've fallen in love with them and it's become a comfort to them. Spending has become a comfort to a lot of people. But you guys know what? If I'm going to be real honest with you and let you know why I feel like I'm being blessed in Solavei, I believe it's so much more than the fact that I can enroll people. I think it's so much more than the fact that I have figured out how to be magnetic. I think it comes back to I had a personal breakthrough. At the age of 40 is when I hit my breakthrough. That's only almost 4 years ago, when I broke the approval addiction. And you guys are going to hear about it in this book. You'll hear about it going forward on webinars, is when you get to the place where you truly are free, where you know that you are loved beyond love, that there is a peace that is available to you that passes money, that you can be on the street or you can be in the palace. But you know that you are going to have peace no matter what situation you're in. There's a lot to those scriptures that we read through, how Paul said, I am content no matter what season I'm in. Interesting, he was content, but he never stopped moving towards progress. And that's what's important. And I believe even as we talk about the approval addiction, when we look at the statistics of the homes in America being in debt, the credit card debt, living with a place of feeling like I gotta have more, I gotta have more. You know what? You don't have to have more. This week I was so humored. Oh my goodness, I'm getting emotional, you guys, because I want you to get it. I remember very personally what it feels like to not have money. I remember what it feels like to be going through our drawers looking for change so we could pay our light bill. I was only 2006, you guys. It's not so far removed that I don't remember, and I know, I have some private messages from folks saying, Stacy, you know, a year and a half ago I started the bankruptcy process, or we've been going through foreclosure and just making enough, and I think we're going to lose our home. You know what? Solavei has not been sent to answer that question. Solavei has been sent to help you have a vehicle to help you answer the questions of where that comes from. We are in the land of the free. And I really believe that the freedom that we've been given, we've got to begin to apply it. So I totally lost my train of thought. Laura, what was I talking about? I got all emotional.
So one of the things that I wanted to reiterate too, and you were talking about how people send you messages and come up to you at these events and stuff, and okay, you are not going to be contagious. I'm not going to cry. I cry every single time I say something like this.
All right. Well,
you know, at our Social Commerce University, you know, a couple came up to us, and you know, like you mentioned, I mean, we're right in the thick of it. We're right at this tipping point where our network is exploding, you know, and we've worked really, really hard. We've invested the time before the money to make this, to prime the pump. You know, and you keep priming the pump, you prime the pump, and you're like sweating, and it's so hard, and it's not easy to prime a pump. When you're building a brand, the pump for a while is empty, you guys, but you keep priming the pump, and eventually, I promise, if you never let up, it's going to overflow your cup. And so, you know, we didn't have to take our family vacation and instead of going on a cruise, go to Social Commerce University. But when we were there, a couple came up to us and said exactly that, said, you know what, we learned a lot. We learned how to enroll people. I learned how to use social media. I learned about APN settings, and that's great. But this couple came up to me in private. They had tears in their eyes, and they expressed that they were just now filing bankruptcy. And I had a chance to pray with them at that event. That, you guys, that's way more than a SIM card. That's way more than teaching someone the right way to set up their phone and all that kind of stuff. You are literally building something that is contagious in a positive way, which this country needs the most right now. This is not about making money in Solavei. This is about making a difference through Solavei. And so all of this, all this webinars and all this stuff that we're doing, we don't have to do that. We've got a great system and great marketing team and great tools out there. The reason we are doing that, and like Juan investing his time, he's sitting there in an office. He's got stuff to do and calls to take. The reason he's investing this time in you guys is because there's a bigger message out there through Solavei that we're all trying to share.
That's awesome. Well,
you know, I just wanted to add, Stacy, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not what we're doing in our lives that really, really matters that much. It's what we're doing in the lives of others. You know, people, and you can see it in you and Laura. People don't care how much we know. You know, they never do until they know how much we really care. And I think if we can care about enough people, get them what they want, then we're going to get everything we want ultimately, because that's what we're doing. You know, as we drive, as we see people, as we try to be that Christian person, to give a hand. You know, at the end of the day, any one of us can leave the room and you get struck down by a car, you know, or get a heart attack. I've had clients who've gotten heart attacks after husbands and wives arguing about money, and she goes home and he's in the room and he's dead. I mean, I've seen all these things. So I know that my passion for helping people in all walks of their life, and I am not a guy who works on Wall Street, and I'm not a guy who had his CPA degrees stuck on the wall, because I understand that the Bible says that God gives us the ability, He gives us the power, and He says, you know, the weak is what confounds the mighty, and He works with the smallest of us, like David, to bring down Goliath. And I understand that, and I don't have to have all those things. But when I sit down and talk with someone, and I look in their eyes, and I see that, wow, their mother and father is about to go into a nursing home, And I see statistic that says that 75% of all seniors are now taking care of their grown children. And I realize that they are spending more money on cell phone, internet, on cable than they are putting into a savings account every month, or into a retirement account, or into a kid's education. It just makes me want to say, hey, you know what? If it means that you have to shut off cable or shut off something, okay, and get yourself financially fit. Start somewhere so that you can have an emergency, so that these stresses, when your kids want to go to Disney World, you don't have to take them to Burger King. You know, you don't have to go to next door for a vacation. And that way the kids wouldn't get on drugs and do things because they experience life. That's what I think we are on this call for, to help people understand that and to drive them to a place that they probably nobody talks to them like this. And we have to be honest and upfront and tell them our situation, where we came from, and how we are now at a place where God has helped us get to. And we cannot just stay here. We have to help others get there. So that's just my feel on it.
Well, I love it, and I think what we're saying is there's a place beyond what you've been told, and it's a place called best. You know, we look at all of the commercials and we see I get a kick out of watching some of the videos and the music videos, and you got these, high riders riding in their cars, and they got their, chains, or they got their girls, and I mean, you can just look them up. They're broke, but they're playing. They're players. They're making it look like they've got a lifestyle. But let me ask you this: who's richer? A person who lives in a home worth $1 million, who has a $950,000 mortgage, or the person in a $150,000 home, a rundown car, but it's all paid for? And I know what I was saying a few minutes ago is, I was getting a kick online out of people trying to guess what kind of car I got. And as you guys know, I can afford any car I want. But I just believe right now we still have young kids. I've got a 13-year-old, I've got a 12-year-old. I'm coming into a season where I'll probably be able to think a little bit more about me. But right now I'm thinking about family. And so I went out and took my son. I said, son, in 3 years you're going to be driving, and I want you to have a nice used vehicle. And so I want you and I to go out, and I'm going to get a vehicle that in 3 years you will be able to take over this vehicle. You'll be able to buy it from us, or you'll make payments. Now, he's got a lot of money saved up, so he'll probably be able just to buy it outright. We'll teach him how to own that debt-free, because it won't be time for him yet to own a home. Maybe it will be. Who knows? We just never know the future of these kids these days. But we went out and we got ourselves a beautiful, and the negotiations were 6 hours long. I told my team, it's crazy, but I was able to negotiate. I contacted some executives over at Ford and contacted them and said, what could I get a 2013 Expedition for rock bottom? I want all the depreciated funds off the lot. What would that be? They told me the number, and I went in and I offered $10,000 below that, and was able to get an absolutely wonderful deal of a deal because I contacted a dealership that was sitting on a lot of inventory. I was able to negotiate a very, very thin, small, tiny plan for that car that they are making nothing, and I had them trick it out. And I'm probably going to trick it out some more because I've got some purple LED lights that are going to go up underneath it. I'm going to probably make it like some kind of hoodlum Solavei Princess Warrior vehicle. But I was able to get an awesome Expedition, Ford Expedition. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I could have gotten an Escalade. I could have gotten a Land Range Rover. I could have gotten a lot of vehicles. But I opted to get a vehicle that would have a third row seat for my family, and then I could have a plan and I could have a strategy for that vehicle so that it would be something that would make sense in the future. I want my kid to have a good paid-for car, right? So I encourage you in every decision that you're making, is it important to have the most expensive, most lavish so you can look like a player, or is it important for you to have a lifestyle that's paid for so that you can have security and freedom? It was a big learning process for my son as well, because he picked it out. He was part of me, negotiating with the folks and getting with the right sales guy, making sure I'm working with a manager. He got to see that whole process with me. Let me ask you this statement. Which statement best describes you? And we're closing this out now. What describes your emotional process when it comes to making purchases? Do you spend money when you're with friends just as a way to have a good time? Do you spend money when you feel a need to reward yourself? Do you spend money when you're emotionally sad, lonely, or you need a pick-me-up? Do you spend money when you're trying to create an image of success? Do you spend money when you're bored or you just need something to do? Do you spend money when you're trying to pacify your children? Think about that, guys. How many times you've gone to the store and you just want to get them to be quiet so you buy them a gift? I have been so guilty of that. And what you really need to do is teach them no. Teach them the word no, and teach them how to have money when they go out with you, that if they want something, they pay for it with money. I don't give my kids an allowance. I teach my kids how to make money, that there's things around the house they just need to do. And they don't give them an allowance for emptying the dishwasher or taking out the trash. That's just life. They're not going to get paid in life for doing that unless they're a trash collector. So I want to teach my children great principles. When you can look at your lifestyle, and that's what today is all about, when you can look at your lifestyle, the idea is to, number one, we're assuming you're in debt, because the majority of all Americans are in debt. We want to help you get out of debt. Remember, make it, save it, grow it. If you're making it and losing it, then you're not saving it. So you're missing the equation. Make it, save it, grow it. So if you're making just enough money and you're behind the 8 ball every month, we got to get you out of debt. So, Juan, I'm going to let you read out these 10 reasons to be debt-free. They're going to get all the explanations, obviously, when we send them out the chapter of this book. But read off these 10 reasons and why they should be debt-free now.
Okay. The first reason is debt is slavery. Okay, and I'll just highlight it a little bit. Being debt means that you are in some way a slave of a master. These Americans have, by and large, very proud of the freedoms we have in our society. So if you can identify that it's slavery, and 95% of Americans are in debt, you know, so like Stacey said in the beginning of the call, we are free at last, according to Martin Luther King. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. And you can't say that until you have no more debt. Number two, it creates stress, which is the number one cause of heart disease, sickness, and long-term illness. It really, really can put you in a place that, you know, you don't want to be physically, because now it's going to cause another financial burden on you. You know, going to the doctor is not a nice thing. You know, some people rather go to jail than go to the doctor. So, number two, debt creates stress. Number three, it means no security or peace of mind. You know, and I just want to quote your study here that says that 80% of all women have responder personalities, and they are predominantly led by their emotions and their need for security. And I just want to add that, you know, when I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, wow, a lot of men are in the same situation. These days, guys are, you know, fighting over their spouses, but they're the ones that's causing the problems also. You know, you're going out and getting golf clubs and going to the golf range every week, and when your wife wants to get a bag, you can't do it. You know, they're hanging out with their friends, and they don't want to take the responsibility. Someone told me that the reason why so many couples are divorced is because God has put a responsibility on the man's shoulder that he be the head. Okay, and that doesn't mean that he is the head like some people consider it, but he has to be the provider. And men walk out from that responsibility because they can't take it, and they leave it to the women. And now the women are stressed out because they got to take the kid. You know, the guys think that they're paying daycare. No, they're not really paying for daycare. It costs so much money, okay, that nobody can figure out, well, what the woman has to do, just the gas alone to drop them off, pick them up, drop them off, pick them up. So anyway, it causes stress. The other thing is that we can see is, that can be embarrassing. And you cited some embarrassing situations where you're going to buy clothes and get up to the counter and you have no money on the credit card. Hello? I mean, how embarrassing is that? Or you're at a restaurant, finish eating, you say, I'll pay, and you have no money. And you have to ask someone. So many people are getting embarrassed when their cars are being taken back and their houses are just being foreclosed on. You know, you cited MC Hammer, and I went and looked at the video, and I'm like, really? Can't touch this? Sitting in front of his, dancing in front of his house, and then a few minutes later, you're sitting in front of the house while they foreclose on it. I mean, that's you too. So it can be embarrassing, and then that affects your self-confidence. It really does. You know, people, even in business, when you're trying to tell someone getting business and you know that you have so much debt and you ain't making no money, all of a sudden they look at you and they can't model after you, and so it really causes you to be in a self-confidence problem. It also increases your chances of divorce, and we spoke about that already. I mean, really, it's one of the leading causes, and you addressed it nicely. It's not really, it's just an offset of something else that's going on. But when you put finances in there, oh my goodness. And again, men run away from that. You know, we choke up because it's like, really, you're going to talk to me about money again? Really, that's what you're going to do? Both of us are working, and she's trying to get the kids what they want and get the type of place you. We are men, and if there's any men listening to this, we are the men. We need to step up, and we need to take responsibility and sit down with our spouses and our significant others and say, look, let's look at our numbers together. You know, all this separate bank account, you still don't have any money in those separate bank accounts because most people are broke. So that increases your chances of divorce. Then you have no emergency savings. And so as soon as there's an emergency, you get back in debt. You have to borrow people's money, and then it makes it even worse. Because what if you can't get to work and your car is broken down and you don't have anything set aside? So that's number 7. Number 8 was the limited investment dollars. That's another thing. We don't understand investment. We don't understand savings, so we don't even have an education about it. And furthermore, we don't have the money. So again, we need to get out of debt. And then your last 2 is debt allows for little or no retirement at all. And so people work until they die. In America today, you know, they say that 60 to 70% of the people will die broke. The others will just die before they get to 65. So they don't even have to think about retirement. And then finally, debt is not a part of God's plan for your life. You know, I see people at churches and the new cars and the pastor collecting offerings and so forth. And these people are in so much debt financially. They have no way. And yet the Bible says, owe no man anything. And that's what, it's so interesting how you started off at the beginning and then you ended with the biggest reason of all is that God doesn't want us to be in debt. It's a sin to be in debt. It's a sin for a man to leave his family and not have anything left for them because they're supposed to be leaving an inheritance for their children's children. And if you can't do that and you're going to church every week and you are up here talking about how you're serving on the choir and you're ushering, but you're in debt, then it's your duty and your responsibility to get out of debt so that you can lead a more fulfilled life for you and your family. So that's the thing.
That's awesome, Juan. And I know that you've got a client that's stepping into your office right now. We just appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
Certainly, well, we've got next week, and you're going to be diving into more about tax benefits and how people can take what they've got. We're going to give you out some tools next week of how to calculate. We're going to actually show you a calculator that you can.
We're going to go into the IRS next week. For those of you who want to go into the IRS, have your pay stub ready and your last tax return, because I'm going to show you some things that will just blow your mind and get you that money that you need to start getting out of debt. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Juan and Laura, both of you. I know this is a touchy, and it can get a very personal subject, but honestly, we want you free. We want you to have a life of freedom. We want you to enjoy a peace that passes all understanding. We want you to know the true secret of what's making things go around. You know, I love it. My husband, every day when we go to bed, he just prays, God, thank you for the Solavei members today that join. And we just pray that they will be blessed, help them in their endeavors. You know, I love the fact that he is a part of our corporate team, but more importantly, I love the fact that he wants the best for you as well. And as we move forward, I just encourage you to constantly, you know, don't feel condemned about the conversations we have here. Don't feel like, oh, this is such a heavy conversation. Just let it drop on you. Just let it water on you until finally it sinks in and says, okay, what can I do? Maybe I can't do everything they're saying, but just pick one thing. You know, it's like the person that needs to lose a couple 100 pounds. Don't try to do it in a night. you eat an elephant with one bite at a time. That's the way you demolish debt, is you take small steps. And as we go through these next few weeks, next week I'm going to be on a cruise that I won with Solavei. Thank God Solavei is paying 100% for that cruise, and we're going to be having a great time. But Juan and Laura has actually opted not to go on that cruise so that she could stay here. I think that's awesome, and they wanted to be on the social commerce tour. I love that. That was a big sacrifice for you, Laura. But they're going to be here next week, and I'm going to be holding the front down, and then coming back, we're going to go through some more of these chapters and actually be giving you the chapters themselves so you can fill out the workbook and make some of those adjustments in your life. So again, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Juan. Remember, everyone, now is the time. This is the place, and you are the one to start your own personal revolution. God bless everyone.
Thank you.